Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope you can hear me. I've got someone who's assisting me, so I'm going to keep my phone close by so she can text me if there's any technical difficulties. But it's exactly 4 o'clock where I am, and so we're going to get started very shortly. I see a few friendly faces. That's so nice. Makes me feel happy to see you all here. I have to tell you, this is our, I think it's our record number for registrants for any of our happy hour webinars, which is amazing. We had 111 people register for today. And I do believe that that is a massive record for us. So I'm going to give it another minute because we have so many people coming on and they're just slowly coming on right now. So we'll give it one more minute before we get going. Couple things. I'll start talking about a little bit about housekeeping. There's a chat. I haven't got my chat opened up. Let me open my chat so I can see it. Okay, there we go. Shelly, if you can hear me, I am speaking now, so you should be able to hear me. And everyone should be able to hear me. I'm gonna move my chat. So because it's a happy hour, I am definitely indulging in a beverage this evening. I'll tell you about it in a minute, but I will show it to you. Here it is. It might be my second one of the day. It might be. I did hide the first can before my husband gets home. But it's the end of the day and I'm off tomorrow and it's a long weekend. So we're moving into an exciting weekend. So that's great. So here we go. I'm just going to wait one more minute here and move my chat. There we go, so I can see what's going on. Hi, Dean. I'm excited for Churchill too. So we're going to talk a little bit about Churchill and a little bit about other stuff too. So we'll get started momentarily. Let me just double check and see how many have registered and how many have signed on. And I think we're gonna get going because it's a couple minutes past the hour. So first of all, this is our 4th happy hour and I'm very excited to have you all here. And what's been really amazing is that there are actually some of you who've been to every single happy hour that we've done. I see people nodding, which is fabulous. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. That means we're doing something right if you keep coming back and these are really meant to be inspirational. We want you to walk away at the end of this. It says 30 minutes. I never do 30 minutes. I apologize in advance. I can't do 30 minutes. It's going to be longer. But the feedback that I've been getting from people is just keep going. If you need to sign off because you have somewhere to be, then you guys go ahead and sign off. But if you're enjoying the presentation, then stay on with me and we'll talk a little bit longer. I'm just looking at my chat window. Hello, it's lovely to see all of you. I see that Natasha has a nice glass of rosé, so that's wonderful. First of all, before we get started, there's a really important thank you I need to make. These would not be possible if it wasn't for someone that I work with who I cherish. Her name is Pip. You might have, sometimes you hear as Philippa, but Pip is our marketing manager and she's amazing and she helps me tremendously, not only with getting these PowerPoint presentations ready, but she also is here with me, hidden away. You can't hear her or see her, but she's my the person who makes sure that everything runs smoothly. So that's fantastic. I do want to tell you, so thank you to Pip. I do want to tell you that I'm wearing a dress today for all of you. But because you can only see me from the waist up, I only ironed from the waist up. So you can't see the bottom. So that's what I did. And if you notice, I am wearing a very special piece of jewelry. It is a polar bear necklace that I actually purchased on my first trip up to Churchill. And it's really funny because I wear it all the time and I have comments from people asking about it, and it absolutely nowhere else have I found it. And even going back to Churchill a second time, I wasn't able to find it again. So I'm sure it would be a great gift to give away. So let's get started. Most of you know Anderson Vacations, and if you've been on these before, please bear with me while I give you a little tiny bit of background. We are a Canadian company selling Canadian product. And with all the things going on in the world, right now is the time to really gear up and start focusing on what's going to open up first. And we really believe that Canada is going to be the first place that people are going to consider for travel. So today we're going to talk about not only Churchill, but in order to get to Churchill, you've got to stop in one of my favorite special cities, Winnipeg, on the way up there. So I'm going to share a few things about Winnipeg with you as well. So let's get started. So I don't know if you know this or not, but some of you do. Winnipeg is actually, it's not my hometown. I was born in Alberta, but I did live most of my adult life in Winnipeg. So I am a Manitoba girl. So this presentation means the world to me, and probably a ton of, well, a huge amount of my very closest friends and the most important people in the world to me do live in Winnipeg. So going through all of this is a really emotional thing for me because it brings me back to one of my favorite places ever. So thanks for showing up. I know there's lots of places you could be, but it's great to have you here. I'm gonna quickly jump to the next slide. Okay, so this is myself and my friend Melanie. As you can see, we're being chased by a polar bear. She works with Travel Manitoba, and we were at Rendezvous Canada, one of our big events that we do every year. And again, my name is Darcy Guardares. I'm the Director of Business Development. My passion is Canada, and my passion really is Manitoba, Winnipeg, and Churchill. So let's get going. The beverage I am drinking tonight is a Winnipeg beverage, and it is from Half Pints, which is a local brewery. So this is my beer right here. I love this place because of course, it's local, and it's never been a better time to shop local. And working with Anderson Vacations, being a Canadian company and having been in business for over 26 years, you're supporting a local company. And that has now become my absolute mantra, is to do everything I can to support local. In fact, if you were at my Vancouver Island happy hour, you know that I'm a huge fan of Blue Grouse wine, and I did have a case delivered yesterday. And when I shared it with a neighbor, so I'm not keeping all 12 for myself, but I shared it with a neighbor. And I did find out that for every dollar you spend on a bottle of local wine, you're putting $3 back into the economy. So that made me feel a lot better about buying a case of wine. I don't feel bad about it at all. One of the great things about Half Pint is they have a little brew, they have a tap house in Winnipeg. They do this really fun beer. It's called Queer Beer. They do it during Pride time. And it's, I think the slogan is fruity and fabulous. And it's just a wonderful beer, and it sells out the first day every year. So it's something really special about this particular brew pub. And they have great beers. They have pale ales, they have some IPAs, some lagers, and so on. Okay, getting to Churchill. Before you get to Churchill, you've got to go to Winnipeg. That's just the way it is. In most cases, there is a charter flight occasionally from different cities. So for example, there's a charter flight out of Calgary at certain times a year. This year, I believe they just did one, but primarily you do have to come to Winnipeg before you get to Churchill. It's about a 2-hour flight from Winnipeg to Churchill, generally using Calm Air. I do recommend though, if you fly up one way, no, I would do it reverse. I would do via rail on the way up, because taking the train up to Churchill is amazing, super relaxing and fun, up to Churchill, and then flying home on the return. So you get the via rail experience. And if any of you have seen my presentations before where I've had the chance to talk about via rail, you would know that I absolutely love it. It's phenomenal for disconnecting and stepping back in time, because via rail is like stepping back to the romance of the olden days. I just love it. So it's quite easily accessible on those flights with only 2 hours from Winnipeg. Once you get to Winnipeg, it is a really interesting city. I lived there for over 25 years, almost 30 years. So I saw the evolution of this city. People used to always say, what was Winnipeg famous for? Freezing cold weather in the winter and mosquitoes in the summertime. But it's so much more than that. We've got this incredible, it's called the Forks Market. It's a meeting place where the two rivers come together, the Red River and the Assiniboine River come together, and they've created this incredible meeting place. It's like a market. And everyone who goes there, especially now as they've been improving and adding things like the commons. In the top picture, you can see the commons, where you can actually go and sit and have a beer and visit with local people or tourists from out of town. It's full of shops, it's full of restaurants, buskers, so they're playing music. It's got this incredible vibe, and it's located right downtown. So it's within great walking distance of lots of restaurants and things. And there's a great hotel right at the Forks that many guests would choose to stay at. Or there's many hotels right downtown as well that are within walking distance of the Forks. If you're looking for empanadas or any kind of ethnic food, it's a great stop. Also, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. This is the only museum in the world that is solely dedicated to celebrating human rights. And it's a fabulous, fabulous stop. It's a world-class museum. People come from all over the world. The architecture is spectacular from the outside, but inside as well. You kind of walk in this beautiful sort of a brick walkway as you walk in, and then you get inside, you kind of go up to this tunnel of light. It's really an emotional experience, and it focuses on all kinds of atrocities that have happened in the world, things that we need to remember, that we should never forget, and it really pays tribute to all of those things. So I definitely highly recommend this. It is a must-see for anyone visiting Winnipeg. Because you're going to Churchill, there's nothing better than getting like a little appetizer before you head up there by stopping at the Assiniboine Park Zoo and visiting Journey to Churchill. It really is an appetizer because you get up close and personal. It's not just the polar bears. You can see muskox and Arctic fox and several other animals up there as well. But of course, the main attraction is the polar bear. And they have these glass tunnels. And if you're lucky enough to be at Journey to Churchill when they do the feeding, they'll do it right over the tunnel, and the bears come up, and you can see how incredibly massive their paws are. It is really a spectacular experience, and highly recommend for anyone who's going to be stopping there. The Legislative building has this really cool, mysterious history and past. There's a gentleman from Winnipeg who's written a book about the Hermetic code, which is all these numbers and symbols that are hidden within this building. And actually, let me just quickly refer to my note, because I did write a couple things down that were really important. They refer to it as a modern reconstruction of King Solomon's temple. So you can do this hour-and-a-half long tour. It's a guided tour, and it's so interesting. My son is 24 years old, and he did this tour, and he said it is one of the most interesting, fascinating tours that you can possibly do. And the Legislative building is beautiful. It has the golden boy on top, which is a giant gold statue robed in gold that's just beautiful. And I actually was very fortunate to see it. They took it down to refurbish it a few years back, and I was up close to it. It's absolutely spectacular. There's some incredible festivals in Winnipeg that you don't want to miss out on. Festival Du Voyageur. It's a tribute to the French culture in Winnipeg. One of the most amazing things is the carvings, the ice snow carvings. It happens in February. It has happened a few years where it's so strange, but it melts in February, and the sculptures decide they're not there. But if we're lucky, they're spectacular, and it's just this incredible art. And there's people come from all over the world to do these sculptures. This festival is a celebration of the French culture with music, food, entertainment. It is really a special event. I love the saying, we don't hibernate, we celebrate, because it doesn't matter how cold it is, you're gonna get a full house for Festival Du Voyageur. It's absolutely amazing. Now, this is like my favorite place in the whole entire planet. And you will never believe that you're in Winnipeg when you visit this spa. And I'm not sure if you say Thermea. I say Thermea, but my daughter says Thermea. It is a spa in the middle of the city. And if you've ever been to the Nordik spa or the Scandinavian spa in Whistler, it's a similar experience to that. It doesn't have the mountains and the same views, but it's one of those spas where you go from hot to cold and so on. It is truly beautiful, and it's a must-do if you stop in Winnipeg. It's a must-do. They have this incredible sauna where they do these ceremonies. It's like a towel ceremony where it's either a guy or a gal, and they have and you're sitting inside there. It's smoking hot and relaxing, and they have these towels, and they do a dance, and they'll put this music on very, very loud. Sometimes it's something like the Lord of the Rings, so it's really intense. And then they do this dancing ceremony with the towels, and they whip the towels, and the heat hits you like a ton of bricks, and it's really amazing. And you leave there where you're scorching hot, and you jump in a pool that's freezing, freezing cold. Absolutely awesome. And they have a beautiful restaurant. You can go there in your robe and have a lovely meal and a nice bottle of wine. So highly recommend. There's also a really great area in Winnipeg called the Exchange District. It's a historic area, and it's really all about the architecture and tributes to like the olden days, way back when. A lot of the buildings still have paintings on the side from the original buildings. So the advertisements from the original companies, which I think is really cool. And you can walk all around the Exchange District, great dining, some of my favorite restaurants ever, some really cute boutique stuff, boutique stores, and then some really neat nightlife. But you definitely have to go there. Outdoor parks, live entertainment in the summertime, really, really fun. And then Folklorama. I'm sure most of you have heard of Folklorama. It is the largest and the longest running multicultural festival in the whole entire world. And they have, I believe they have about 44 pavilions, and it goes on for about 2 weeks. I think this year was the first time it's ever been canceled, but I'm sure that they'll be back nice and strong next year. So whether you're looking for a Peruvian experience or maybe a Japanese experience, you will have the opportunity to dine on the cuisine, see the beautiful shows, and experience the cultures. And that's the best thing about Manitoba. It's such a multicultural city or province, but Winnipeg in particular, a multicultural city, celebrating all the cultures and coming from all over the world. So, and the restaurants are amazing too. Okay, so now we're going to jump into a little bit about Churchill. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything because there's so many fun things I want to tell you about. Okay, just before I jump into Churchill, a couple of the things I wanted to mention about Winnipeg that you want to do. The art gallery is awesome in Winnipeg. There's a Manitoba Museum, Fort White, and Fort White is like a natural outdoor playground. So there's lots of stuff outdoors as well in the summertime. Let's talk about Churchill now. So I'm sure you guessed it, but it is the polar bear capital of the world. And it's also the beluga whale capital of the world, which is pretty amazing to have those two titles, that's for sure. An interesting fact is that, maybe you didn't know this, it is illegal to lock your car doors when you're in Churchill, because there always needs to be an escape route. So should a little polar bear crawl into town, it does happen, actually probably not all the time, but it does happen occasionally, there needs to be somewhere to be safe. So it is illegal to lock your car doors in Churchill. There's not tons to do in Churchill. There's a few little things. It's really about nature and connecting with all the lovely, incredible wildlife that's around. So we work with 3 major partners in Churchill, and it's really important to know that sometimes it's tempting to go online and just Google Churchill if you don't know much about it, if you've never experienced Churchill before. But what we do at Anderson Vacations is that we specialize in Churchill, and we work with several partners. Today I'm going to focus on 3 partners that do very unique products. But when you're talking to our staff, you're talking to people who can really set you up with the right product for your clients. So just keep that in the back of your mind that when you're looking for help, we can help you with all of these things. So I'm going to focus on 3 major partners that we have there. But before we get to that, let's talk about this really interesting fort. When you first arrive in Churchill, during the summertime, you can go over to this fort. It's the Prince of Wales Fort, and it was built forever ago, and there's lots of history. One of the things I found really interesting about this fort was, see all the walls around the top? You can walk like very close to those. There's no guardrails whatsoever. It's very open. Made me really nervous because there was kids running around and stuff, but it's a really open, free place to walk around. Standing on the edge, I looked over and there was actually polar bears down below us. Now I must tell you that in the summertime, if you're going to Churchill to see polar bears, and that's absolutely your goal, is to see polar bears. I would say fall would be the better time. You can definitely see them in the summertime, and we did see polar bears from Prince of Wales Fort. But if you're looking for polar bears, there's a better time to go. But at this time, there's lots of other special things. When we came to the Prince of Wales Fort, there was an interpretive tour. So you learned all about the history, and there was an Indigenous family there who was actually cooking Bannock for us. And so they made the dough, and we got to cook the Bannock ourselves, which was really cool. We wrapped it around a stick, and we cooked it over the fire, which was really neat. There's also a museum in Churchill that's worthwhile to stop in. If you're interested in the carvings, the local carvings, beautiful, absolutely beautiful display of Inuit art. The museum is now called Itsanitaq I'm not good at saying it, but it used to be called the Eskimo Museum, but they've just in the last year or two changed the name to the Indigenous name. It's really a focus and celebration of the Inuit culture and art. Really neat. Okay, so I did mention that you can see polar bears, and you probably will see polar bears, maybe not as in as abundance as you would in the fall, but it is really truly raw nature. I was on the back of a boat laying on my stomach with my camera, and we were going through the water. We were actually looking for the whales. And we were so fortunate because a mama bear and her baby were swimming from the mainland to a small island. And so we just stopped the boat, and the bears came to us. We didn't go too close to them. They came to us, and they were literally within a few feet. Like I felt like I'd reach out and I could touch them. Absolutely amazing. So you can see that, of course, there's no snow at this time, and the polar bears are waiting, of course, for fall to come, when the ice comes in and all the seals come in so that they can feed. But you know, they have a good time. They'll be out there roughhousing around. And if you have an opportunity to see that or get a photograph, it's pretty special. When you're in Churchill itself, if you're looking for something with an accommodation that's really comfortable and cozy, if accommodation is extremely important to you, then this would be my choice for something that's just really cozy, authentic. They have this wonderful log cabin. It's called Lazy Bear Lodge, and this is one of our partners. And this cabin was hand built by the owner, Wally. It took him a long time to build this cottage, and you can just feel the love and the hard work he put into this place. When you walk in the front door, you can feel the warmth of the fire, whether it's summer or winter. You'll have the fire on in the evening in the summertime. You walk in and you just get this really special feeling to it. It's comfortable, it's cozy, and it has all the amenities that you need, and it's right in the middle of town. So in town, you can walk to a couple of small restaurants, but primarily the restaurant in the hotel, in the lodge is, I think, probably one of the best. It's important to note they do not serve alcohol at this particular lodge, and for some people that is important to know, but they did have these fabulous spritzers, like wonderful fruit spritzers that were fabulous. So if it was, I didn't really miss it. You would not, excuse me, go wandering around at night in Churchill because there always is the risk of polar bears coming into town. And I'm not sure if you know this, but Churchill actually has a polar bear jail. It's the polar bear holding cell, but they call it the polar bear jail. And so if a polar bear comes into town, rather than dispose of the polar bear, which we don't want, they take the bear and they put it inside the polar bear jail, and it will stay there for up to 30 days in the dark without any food or anything, because they don't want to harm the bear, but they do need to teach it that coming into town is not the best way. And then they will sedate the bear and then take them out. And I had the fortunate opportunity to see one of the bears being taken from the polar bear jail. So they strapped him up after he was asleep, and a helicopter came in and picked him up and carried him off. So they take him out to a remote area and put him back where he should be, not in town. So I love this experience at Lazy Bear Lodge. And from here, all the excursions are very close by. You can do all kinds of water experiences that I'll get into in a moment. One of the things that really stands out for me at Lazy Bear was the fact that they served local cuisine. So we had some incredible char, we had all kinds of incredible meals and giant portions. And one of the things that I learned is that when you're traveling to a really cold place and you've been out all day in the fresh air and you're exercising and you really aren't eating much during the day, when you come back to the lodge and you get this giant, fabulous portion of food placed in front of you and the quality is amazing, it's like, the best, absolutely the best food ever. So it's a great way to end the day, is having a fabulous meal at the lodge. And people come from all over, locals and other hotels as well. I love this shot of this polar bear. It's an incredible, special feeling to see them. You really feel like you've connected with nature. They're huge and powerful, and you can absolutely not cuddle a polar bear. I've had people ask me about that. Is there a chance that I'll be able to cuddle a polar bear? No, that's definitely out. But in some cases, you can get very close to them and have a really great look at them. The other reason to come in the summertime, this is a very special reason to come to Churchill, the beluga whales. There are these very friendly creatures. They're actually called the canaries of the sea. And if you have a water experience with them and you chirp at them, they will chirp back at you. They make these whistling, chirping sounds. There's several ways that you can experience them, whether it could be in a kayak, it can be in the back of a Zodiac, and now there's a new one. Let me just tell you what it's called. Let me see if I can tell you. It's called, one quick second. Oh, I can't remember. I don't have it written down. But it's an experience where you lay on a foam mat. You used to be able to snorkel with the beluga whales, but you can no longer snorkel with them. They've made a law about that. But you can lay on the back of this mat, and they'll take you through, and you can put your face in the water and see them. Now, if you've been to one of my presentations before, you might have heard this story, but I'm going to tell it again anyway, because it's one of my favorites. So when I arrived in the summertime to Churchill, I came with a friend, and we did the sea kayaking excursion. So we went out in our kayaks, and we got to see all the whales, and it was just amazing. And I was so excited that when I got back to the lodge, the guide came back and knocked on my hotel room door, and he said, you know, Darcy, I could see how excited you were to be on that excursion. We're going out again tomorrow morning at 7:30. Would you like to join us again? He said, we didn't tell anybody else. So I was like, yes, of course, I want to go tomorrow morning. So I could barely sleep. I was so excited. When I woke up in the morning, having paddled for hours the night before and having zero upper body strength, when I went to get in the kayak in the morning, I couldn't even lift my arms. I was desperate to paddle and keep up with the group. It wasn't possible. I just couldn't do it. So when I got in the kayak, I didn't know, I had to make a decision. Do I stay in the kayak or do I have to get out? And I convinced the guide to allow me to stay in the kayak as long as I promised that I wouldn't go too far away from this little buoy. I think I have another photo. I'll just jump to the next photo. So I got in the kayak and I just sat and I waited, and the rest of the group took off a lot further away from me. So I was kind of by myself in Hudson Bay, and it was like really exciting. And I had read before I went on this trip that if you sing to the beluga whales, then they'll come. And they were definitely coming around me, but I thought, okay, this is my chance. There's no one around, and I am the worst singer in the whole entire world. So I started to sing my heart out, and sure enough, the whales started to come and surface. And you could see the mama whale is white and the baby whale is gray, and they started to surface. But not only did they surface, a whale came up behind my kayak and started to bump the back of my kayak, which was absolutely the most terrifying and exciting thing that had ever happened to me before. I was squealing. And people, when I tell that story, often ask me, well, what was it that you were singing? And I do remember what I was singing. I was singing a song from the movie The Sound of Music. These are a few of my favorite things because it was the only song I could think of that came to mind that I know the words of. But it was something that I'll never forget my entire life. And those are the experiences that just, you can't even pay for those kinds of things. So I highly recommend it. When we were in the bay, there was actually a baby, little gray baby whale that had been orphaned and that was swimming around, and they had given him a name. His name was Oscar. So the days that we went out, we got to see Oscar, and he kind of stayed in the herd with the other babies, and it was really, really exciting. I'm really ignoring the chat window at the moment while I'm talking, but I will get to it in a minute. So if you're putting comments or questions, I will get to them. So I'm just sort of jumping through that. So I'm not paying attention to it just yet. If you want to put any comments, please feel free to. Okay, so if you're looking for polar bears, if that's your goal, you want to go there and you want to see polar bears, then definitely October, November is the time to go. Yes, it's a little bit colder at that time, but you've got the warm clothing. You want to bring your warm clothing. If you're from a place where you don't have warm clothing, if you're from BC, I'm sure we can arrange for clothing rentals for you so that you will be warm when you get there. There are people out there who we call chill seekers who are really looking for these experiences. I love the symbol of the Inuksha because it really pays tribute to the Indigenous people that you will run into in the community. Okay, so my winter experience October happened to be with Frontiers North, another partner of ours that we work very closely with. And this is really about a tundra buggy experience. So you can see on the back of the tundra, there's people in the back who are leaning over taking photographs, looking down at the bear. And that did happen where the bear will come up that close. The great thing about this product is that you're out on the tundra. So when you depart Churchill and you head out to the tundra, you are out there for the 2, 3, 4 days that you're on the program. So you do not go back into Churchill till you're ready to fly home. So there's none of this transportation back and forth. You're staying out there, which allows you to sleep on the tundra, and it allows you to go to bed to spectacular sunsets and Aurora Borealis, and wake up with the possibility of seeing a polar bear at your window. So that's really beautiful. Now, this is the buggy that you're in during the day as you're touring around, but there's also sleeping accommodation. This is definitely a view that you might get to have, which is very amazing. And on that note, I'm going to tell you something that happened to us. On the back of this Tundra buggy, you see where the people are standing? The floor of that buggy is actually a grate, so you can look through it. So if the bear happens to be underneath that part of the buggy, you can see the bear. So as we're on the back of that Tundra buggy, my husband and I were on this particular trip, and one of the bears came up, and you have to be very still and very quiet. You can only hear the clicking of cameras. And along came this bear very slowly. We were all so quiet. And the bear came right underneath. And I don't know what possessed my husband to do this, but he kneeled down on one knee and he put his nose close to the grill, and my husband just exhaled. And when it's that cold and you exhale, you know you can see your breath. And it was so amazing because the bear, his nose just came up and they were like nose to nose, and they locked for just a moment. Oh, it was amazing. There was a woman standing beside us that was just in tears. It was beautiful. You can look right into the eyes of a polar bear. Just amazing. And this is what the tundra looks like. So when you wake up in the morning or in the evening, you can see this. And one of the things I want to mention is the first time I went to Churchill, I don't know why I had this in my mind, but I thought there's going to be polar bears everywhere. Well, it wouldn't be much fun if you arrived there and then all the polar bears were gathered around you, would it? Because you could go up there and spend, a few hours and then you could leave. The best part about it for me is the elusiveness of the polar bears and the other wildlife. The Arctic fox, the ptarmigan, the wild white hares that you'll see. They're not just walking around everywhere. And sometimes, we didn't even have the good fortune to see a mama bear and her cub. Many people do get that opportunity, but we didn't. You do spend most of the day looking for the bears. So it's an experience all day. And you actually get on those buggies that I mentioned. Now you can see in the background, that's the tundra buggy, sort of the lodge that you sleep on out on the tundra. So there is a kitchen car that they work out of. There's a dining car. There's even a lounge car, as well as 2 sleeping cars. So when you wake up in the morning, at absolutely no point on this particular package do you step foot on the ground. You are protected and safe all the time. You do not set foot on the ground. So you go from this buggy to your tundra moving buggy, and then you go out on the tundra searching for wildlife. And you spend the whole day from about 9 o'clock till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There is a washroom on the tundra buggy, and you do have an incredible lunch. It can be anything from sandwiches to soups and stews, actually on the buggy while you're on there all day with other guests. And then when you come back at 4 o'clock, this was my favorite part because there's 2 tundra buggies at the same time. So they're having an experience in one tundra buggy and you're having an experience in yours. And at 4 o'clock, you meet in the lounge car, and the wine is included and the beer is included and little appetizers. And you sit down and you share all those stories of the day. And that to me was the best part, to be able to say, what did you see? We saw this, and it was fabulous. And then you all gathered together in the dining car for a fabulous meal. What they put together out on this cart, you just can't even imagine. And then into the evening, sometimes they'll have a lecture, or they might have a little bit of entertainment, and then you all bunker down for the night. And this is what you sleep in. And you can see the beautiful Hudson Bay blankets. Aren't they gorgeous? And so, yes, there is bunks. So the person on the upper bunk should be able-bodied for sure. So if you're traveling and you're not comfortable going in the upper bunk, you can request the lower bunk. And these are closed off by curtains. So they are open in this picture. You don't sleep open like this. There's these really heavy curtains. There's 2 curtains, a lighter one and then a very heavy curtain, which keeps out the sound. And it's really very, very comfortable. And then this is one of the sleeping cars. And they actually provide you with earplugs just in case there happens to be a snorer or two, just in case. But generally, you don't really hear too much when you're in your little cubby. But it's really interesting because if you're there for 3 or 4 nights, it's incredible how connected and bonded you become with the other guests who come from all over the world. And the average age range, I would say, would probably be 55 plus on these tours. But there were some younger people, and they were people that were in their 90s as well, sleeping in these bunks. So it just depends on your mobility, really. And that is the buggies at night with the Aurora Borealis above. So imagine that kind of experience. And one of the sunsets, I couldn't find my photograph, but I had a photograph of one of the most spectacular sunsets I've seen in my life from the buggy. One morning we woke up and there was a bear actually nibbling on the side of the lodge that we were in. I'm just going to quickly, before I go to another picture here, refer to a couple of questions. 1 second here. Okay. Is there a best time for both whales and polar bears? Okay, definitely it would be the summertime. And again, you can see the polar bears in the summertime. There's no guarantees, but I would say summertime. Only time you can see the whales is in the summertime. And for polar bears, oh, Jim, I thank you for saying that. October and November is definitely the best time for the polar bears. We do offer rail and air packages, combination. We can put everything together in a package. So that's perfect. Would you share a cubby space with strangers? Okay, that's an excellent question, Catherine, because you could possibly, if you just were traveling as a single, end up in that space with someone on the bottom or you on the top. My husband and I shared bottom and top, but it is a possibility, yes. They would put female with female in every case. And what time do folks go to bed? Folks go to bed generally quite early because, like I said, they're more mature clientele. So, and you're exhausted, really, after a full day like that, you're pretty tired. There is one night that we did stay up till midnight and had a wonderful time. And that's when I learned that people do snore. When I was walking back to my cubby, I could hear a few people snoring. So yeah, so it's a pretty early night, but you do wake up fairly early for breakfast and then you're in the buggy after that. Let me go to the next. This is a wonderful photograph of course, a mama cub. I think it's a mama, it could be the papa, and the baby. And if you're lucky enough to experience that, it's I'm sure, a once in a lifetime experience. So now I have to go back because I didn't get to see that in person. You can see that people really can freely move about inside with their cameras. There were people with camera lenses that were this long, that were going, that never stopped the entire time and had thousands of photographs. But you know, Jim, who's actually on this webinar with me, Jim is the one who told me before I went, you know that people spend so much time taking photographs and trying to capture everything on their cell phones, that to take the time and put the camera down and really just enjoy the experience. And that's something that I hold dear to me ever since Jim told me that. And many things that I do, I get those pictures that I need, but then I just really embrace where I am. And I think that's the best advice you could possibly receive. And this is another great photograph of the buggies with the Aurora Borealis. And I do need to tell you that I think if you've been on other sessions with me, that you know that Yellowknife is the best place in the world, in the whole entire world, not Iceland, not the Norway or anywhere else. Yellowknife is the best place, but Churchill is in the top 3 places in the world to see the Aurora Borealis. They do see it approximately 300 nights per year. So that's amazing. I'm going to talk about Aurora in a minute, but I do want to talk about one of our other partners. What age group are children welcome? Yes, every different program has different age groups for children. The one I'm going into right now, the minimum age, I believe, is 8 years old. In most cases, that's probably around the age range. There was, on the Lazy Bear Lodge program, there was a child, a little boy that was about 7 or 8 years old on that program. But I wouldn't take anyone much younger than that, really. And we would check to make sure that there was, if there's any kind of rules on that, we'd make sure that we would tell you about that before you made the booking for sure. Churchill Wild. Remember how I said on the back of those buggies, you're nice and safe and you're looking down and you're taking pictures? Well, you're very, very safe with Churchill Wild as well. But if you're a photographer, there's a big difference between taking a photograph off the back of a buggy looking down at a polar bear than there is when you're on the ground with the polar bear. Now imagine being on the ground with a polar bear. And that's exactly what Churchill Wild does. They have 3 very unique eco lodges. They actually have 4 lodges, but I'm going to focus on these 3. I'm not going to go into too much detail about these lodges, but they have 3 eco lodges that are incredible, and they're all a little bit out of Churchill. So the bottom one is Seal River Lodge, and it's a great lodge for both polar bears in the winter, fall, and beluga whales in the summer. But the difference between this product really is that you're on the ground with the bears, and then you can actually experience the beluga whales there as well. The other 2 lodges, one is called Diamond Lake Lodge, and the other is Nanook. And so they're different distances away, anywhere from 30 kilometers up to 250 kilometers away. The further away you are, of course, the more remote, and then the more natural, and in all experiences that you'll have, you will see the polar bears. But the further away, of course, it's more remote. Incredible. These are part of the unique lodges of the world. So they're very, very special. The dining is incredible. And if you have photographers who are looking, or you are a photographer yourself, this is definitely the product you're looking for. Sorry, I'm just gonna go to my question bar because I saw a question pop up. A little arrow is deceiving me. Oh yes, the lectures range in all kinds of things, from photography to nature to the history to even the stories of the ownerships, how these people ended up in Churchill, because even that in some cases is a story as to why they ended up there. I love this photograph. When I say up close and personal, I mean up close and personal. In the actual where the lodges are, there is a fence around it, and the bears can come up this close. But there are parts of this tour where you go out and you are on the ground with the polar bears, no fences between you. You are always 100% safe. You do have a guard, an armed guard with you. They have all kinds of methods to scare away the polar bears. They don't ever want to harm the polar bears, and they have never had to do anything like that and they've never had any incidents whatsoever with any danger. But imagine as a photographer being this close with the polar bears. What an amazing experience. And it really isn't just about the polar bears, it's the foxes and the birds and so on. The best time, someone had asked me about birding, and the best time for birding is actually spring and fall. But the last week of June and the first week of July is positively the best peak time to see birds. So there's something like over 1,000 species of birds. So if you've got someone interested in that, it's a phenomenal place for that as well, and all kinds of wildlife. I'm super excited to share with you. If you called into our office, you may have talked to the lovely Megan Burry. She's one of our specialists, and she's a very special person to us. And she recently, I believe it was February, I could be wrong, it was either January or February, or maybe even early March. She had the opportunity to travel up to Churchill. There's a new program specifically for the Northern Lights product up in Churchill. And there's actually a charter flight out of Calgary, Alberta. They had 1 departure this year. I'm not sure for 2021, but Megan, if you call our office, you can speak to Megan. She can fill you in. And these are her photographs. And they're just beautiful. Look at the Northern Lights. And that's actually her looking up at the lights, holding a bird in her hand. One of the most amazing experiences that she had while she was up there, she did the dog sledding and so on. But in the Aurora viewing is Dan's Diner. They set up this restaurant on the Tundra. And when she came back, she was just so excited to share not only her pictures, but her stories about this dining experience where you're surrounded by the Northern Lights. And it's, I'm not sure how many courses, it's a 4-course meal, or it's a beautiful meal with local cuisine. There are people who fly up there specifically to do Dan's Diner because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So this is a product that's actually new, and in previous years you weren't able to go up to Churchill and do this kind of product. So it's something new and exciting that we can sell. And I love the comments. Love Megan. I love Megan too. So yeah, she's fabulous to work with. We do have group rates, absolutely, and we can do custom groups. So if you've got interest, you think you can get interest and you want to do a custom group, for sure we can put that together. We can do a custom group. I can do a presentation for you. Let me see, are there mobility limitations for clients with strollers and wheelchairs? Yes, there are. To be honest, there are. With wheelchairs, I don't believe any of the product in Churchill is wheelchair accessible. even with a walker would be difficult. There are people with canes. There was a lady on my tour that did have a cane. I always would recommend they must have really great boots with grips on the bottom, because we are dealing with mature people generally, and it can be slippery, so you've got to be careful about that as well. But a very, very special experience. Okay, so we're coming to a close, but before we do, if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat box. Okay, so when I was I mentioned being at the fort, and they made the bannock. This is a recipe for bannock. If you want to take a photograph of it, you can. We're going to send it out to you anyway, so don't worry if you want to try and make this. You can do this in a Dutch oven, but you actually can make this and wrap it around a stick and then put it over an open fire and cook it that way. And it's the traditional indigenous way of cooking bannock, and it's delicious. I highly recommend that you have some Rogers maple syrup nearby or some butter to put on top of it, because it's incredible. It's really delicious. So I'll leave that up there for a minute. Let me just see if I have any other questions with regards to this. I'm going to quickly look at my notes while I'm waiting for any other questions, see if I missed anything. I think I covered most everything. Let me just see if I have any more questions that come up. No, I don't have any. I truly appreciate you guys all coming out for this. One thing I do want to mention is that, yeah, we do need the salmon and dill sauce to go with the bannock, Linda, that's for sure. One of the things I want to mention is that the response to these webinars has been phenomenal, and I thank you for just showing up. You know what? Taking the time to be inspired. The response has been overwhelming. I am fully booked from now until June 16th doing independent virtual events for agents. So if you work for a consortia and you are interested in doing something like this as a consumer event, I'm getting to the point where I'm so busy that it's hard for me to do individual agencies just for one agency. But if you belong to a consortia and you think, hey, let's do this for all of our offices and do it for our consumers, you can invite consumers. Lots of consortias are doing that, and the response is phenomenal. I can try and squeeze you in and see what I can do. But if you're looking for that, we're here to support you. Our goal at Anderson Vacations is to really help you grow and help you to sell Canada. There has never been a better time to focus on Canada. You know the reasons why. You know the Canadian dollar. You know, you want to shop local. You want to support your own communities. And there's some rules right now. The borders are not open yet from province to province, but slowly they will open. And as they do open, we believe that the first thing that's going to happen to open up will be our self-drives. So we've got incredible self-drive products. If you've been to my other webinars, Vancouver Island, the Yukon, Eastern Canada, phenomenal self-drives. I think that that's going to be the first thing that really takes off. And so that's probably what you guys should be very well versed in. And if you need help, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. But really, truly, we're here to inspire you, to remind you that Canada is the most beautiful country in the world. And we're thrilled to be able to offer all of this to you. Thank you so much for all of the comments that are coming through. Feel free to leave any notes that you have or ask any questions. And if I missed any questions, I will respond to them via email. And I will jump to the next one. I think my email address, there's my email address on the bottom of this slide. So if you want to ask me any questions directly or reach out to our staff, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me. I will stay on for a couple of moments. You can sign off anytime, but if you want to send me a message, that's great. And until next, 2 weeks from now, we will be having another happy hour. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We're going based on requests. So if you have some requests, unfortunately, the request for Churchill was by one of my amazing agents in Winnipeg, and he could not be here tonight. Matthew, shout out to you. We're going to send you this recording so that you can enjoy this. And hopefully we'll come up with something fabulous for 2 weeks from now. But if you have a suggestion, I know someone suggested Saskatchewan, and I love Saskatchewan. There's actually some really cool things to see there. And we're talking about maybe the interior of BC, maybe some Niagara. We've got a few things going on. So thank you, thank you. Oh, Matthew did jump on the last part. Excellent. Quebec, we might do Quebec. I might even bring my good friend Jim on to help me with Quebec, because he's got great experience. That's Jim, who just tipped his hat. We'll maybe bring Jim on to give you some of his feedback. Oh, and one more thing. In a few weeks, we're doing a special one that's going to be on location in Banff with some very good friends in Banff. We're going to share some stuff locally. So we'll share that with you as well. We will share the link with you. It will probably come out sometime tomorrow. So we'll send you the recording, and you can share with all of your team. And if you have any ideas or questions, please reach out. Thanks, everyone. And cheers to all of you for showing up.